Great. I help you for share. I know say we don't late more than an hour now, and definitely we dey bring another frontline show today. It done almost past how many weeks we not do a discussion here. So I just want to make we go ahead and share the link and invite more people before we start. Yes, welcome everyone. As you see, people are now begin coming for join with regular Saturday conversation. We don't miss 2 weeks of the live discussion on the Frontline show. So today we want for see if we do another show. I help you for share the link and then invite more people for coming. I see Lamin Denke, you don't come in high. Please help me for share the link. Today we want to talk about the Parliament, the Sierra Leone Parliament, and Maada Bio in second term agenda, the agenda of Maada Bio and how Parliament of Sierra Leone is either working to enhance that agenda or working together with him to get a second term. And more also, I will talk about this recent drama that was acted in Parliament. I will talk about that, and then I also get for try for throw some light about where we are with the question of voter registration, the elections, some kind of update. And I plan for make this discussion not too long or not too lengthy, but my goal is to see what perspective I will add in the recent development we don't take place. So I want to thank everybody. We already begin to come in. Share the link and let us see what we can talk about today. We have to also make this conversation available via audio after this. So share the link. Yes, good afternoon. I think that baby laga. So keep sharing the link and inviting more people. Mr. the share. So let us take a break while we share the link, and then we don't late a little bit. We've been scheduled this meeting for an hour earlier, but as the case is, I'm also traveling. The last couple of weeks are they in between the east coast of the United States to the Midwest, and so there's a time difference. The time zone is different, so that make we miss. So we apologize for that. But regardless, here we are. Make we share the link and invite more people. Yes, thank you, everyone. And I appreciate the fact that we're going to get people in the joining. Make we continue for share the link. I get for spend today not too long a time, maximum of at least 1 hour or at most 1 hour, we can say that. What I want to talk about today is just Parliament, the Sierra Leone Parliament. But before I do that, I got to talk about a little bit about the ongoing voter registration and what we have observed in the last couple of days, two days now, 3 days since the commencement of the voter registration, verification of voter registration, and what we have observed. So when I share the link, share the link here small. I want to make sure whosoever is available will be part of the conversation. But regardless of whether you're available or not, when this conversation close, we go also make the audio available for make people that listen because it's very important when we get certain messages across. So I go encourage people with already there for endeavor for help with for share the link. I see Arun Kamara, George Owell, our usual people are here. Lamin Denke, Arun Kamara. So thank you for being for following up with this conversation. Yes, Memuna Bari, good. Keep joining in and inviting more people. Let's have a conversation. It don't pass 2 weeks now. We now get this meeting going on. We not have a meeting after I think 2 weeks now. So I do apologize for that. And we will continue by saying that we still thank Then and Now, and we appreciate Mr. Prince Chroma and the Then and Now crew for providing us this wonderful opportunity for get a platform that we can use anytime, any day, any hour for Get With Voices Across. This is a wonderful opportunity that we remain appreciative of. So, as I say, so much drama don't take place the last couple of days. And this include, among other things, the reported incidents in Parliament where parliamentarians showed on television what looks like a fight that was ongoing and rumors that went out on social media or reports of alleged arrest and detention to the extent that we even saw within 24 hours a supposed report from the clerk of parliament listing some members of parliament in the opposition that are supposedly slated for arrest. So I want to talk about my own perspective on those things and how I see what is happening now in Sierra Leone and the way things are. And as I say, this is a family conversation. I want to do it very honest and casual conversation. So if you get any question where you want to make an address in the process, please put it on the chat before we start. You can write your question, your comment, or anything where you want to make a readout in this process. Make we talk. Sorry, we're a little bit late in terms of starting this conversation because we've been supposed to not start an hour ago. But for the last since October, I've been on the road traveling from Washington to New York to Kentucky, today Illinois, and I will be also traveling next couple of days. So because of the different time zones that I'm crossing in between, there's tendency for me to miss. So I apologize for a little bit of late. I see more people are coming in. Sori Ibrahim Kanu, Usman Kamara, yes, Abdul Rahman Magona. Yeah, this is a good usual phases. I mean, usual names of people, man, phases. So let's keep sharing the link. I will come back. Today, strictly, I will focus on Parliament. Before I tell you now, for make una know, Parliament already then time done the done. This Parliament where we get the opposition who we know they talk about say they don't sell out, they don't make so. They get a few months now. We'll not be talking about them as honorables until after the election of 2023. So what did they not be able to do for the last 4 years or 4.5 years? Elect them continue for fete now from day for yesterday to today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, next month. They go now. What they will fete over that and the few weeks we don't left for them. We have few more weeks left for the current honorable members of parliament of the APC, honorable members of parliament of the C4C, honorable members of parliament of the NGC, honorable members of parliament of the SLP. They put honorable for them for respect, for making them feel big. Whether they are honorables or not, that's when I all go decide. But what I'm trying to say They have few days left, or few weeks left now, for making them come on a parliament, make parliament close. So, and now what I'm going to talk about is what has parliament done in the last 4 years that we need not forget. And I'm not going to talk about the these police beatings because I don't talk about that. That is what they want you to talk about. I'm going to talk about what members of parliament do not want you to talk about. What your members of parliament does not want me to talk about, do not want me to talk about. And members of parliament as a collective from all parties. I know some of my audience love some of these parliamentarians, but we have to have a conversation about the truth. So before I start, I just want to give a heads up so you know where I'm coming from before I start the conversation. There will be no surprises. Oh yes, today we have Reed Stockman. My cousin is Anne Babawalis. Yes, thank you very much for being here. It's good. It's good to have non-Sierra Leoneans also listening to our weekly broadcast. Thank you very much for the time. Unfortunately, much of what I'm going to talk about will be laced in what we call Creole. Is a mixture of English and other kinds of languages, similar to what you might call Jamaican Patois, Creole. So, but whatever the case is, I believe we will be able to have this conversation. What's the essence of the so-called verification? Has it been done before? They are honorable, my brother, and you can't change that. Okay, Fatmata Luawa, I'm not denying that. I'm not changing that honorable. I'm just giving you the title. I'm just saying whether their actions have been honorable enough or dishonorable. So that's open. That make a talk say then honorable. So I'm going to talk about parliament, but I want to remind you that the parliament I'm talking about, the current parliament, they have only a few weeks left and parliament will be closed. They will be seeking re-election from the Sierra Leonean voters on whether they should return to that parliament again as members of parliament or you want to elect another set of people. So now that I talk about today. Well, you are too kind, Brother Cherno, in calling the MPs honorable, but now they are non-rebels and perishables in my book. Okay, sometimes these comments make you, it's good to see these diverse voices. The truth is that the entire parliament is dysfunctional and has nothing serious to showcase in terms of being able to deliver in the interest of the nation. They are acting in order to distract the nation. This is from Salon TV News. Good one. So, yes, we don't get appreciable number of people. Let me take a break and then I will come back. Maybe we'll get into the conversation proper. Okay, so if I remember, since June, I would say May, towards the end of May and June, we've been to talk about voter registration. First, before we come to voter registration, we're going to talk about the fact, say, the Parliament of Sierra Leone, then we want for pass what we call the Public Elections Act, the Public Elections Bill of 2022. The Public Elections Bill now been a new law where Parliament developed, or when the government, when I say Parliament, I'm talking about ruling party MPs and opposition party MPs. We found out that the Parliament of Sierra Leone don't receive by April of 2022, been don't receive what we call the Public Elections Bill, or the bill entitled the Public Elections Act of 2022. The objective of that law day, now for being change the election laws and as alone, for change the way and manner in which we organize elections. Because the fact of the matter is, they just organize election how you want them, or the way you feel for organize them. Elections are always organized according to lay down laws, lay down rules and regulations on how to conduct public elections. So before now, we've been getting what we call the Public Elections Act of 2012. Now, the law that we review the existing legislation before then, we introduce how we organize all the elections in 2012, 2018, and all of the by-elections right through. In fact, under that very law, they will be organized election will result in the presidency of Julius Maada Bio. Now, the very law, the very act, the Public Elections Act of 2012, now in will be used for organized elections will lead to Maada Bio in becoming president. Now, under that same law, the Maada Bio contest election 2 times, in 2012 and in 2018. So this year, we find out, say, members of parliament been not receive the bill we entitled Public Elections Bill, Public Elections Act of 2022, as a new law for change how we use organized elections. The reason why I make a reminder of this, that make we not forget so we don't come out and so we end up, or so we still there. So the question we will raise, why the parliament and the government decide for change with election laws? Why make them decide, say, the law under which Maada Bio been contest election, TINAP as candidate for SLPP in 2012 and 2018 and succeed for become president? Why then we decide, say, that law they will not need it again? We need a new law for organized election for the 3rd time with Maada Bio they contest for be president. Because if you don't contest 2012 for be president, you not be succeed. 2018 he contest, he succeed for be president. Then 2010 anyway contest, the law way under which he been contest, now the Public Elections Act of 2012. Now, after he be president, the 5 years later, he want for contest again, which means the 3rd time we might have want for contest for make him be president, because the time way if he be president, they can expire. Now they can't go into election. The same way with parliament, then time they can't do, might be in time they can't do again. So both parliamentarians and the president, then they go back for seek election. For ask the people that made them vote them back. Maada Bio they go for make them vote again, for make it continue for be president, or then say no, we don't want again for be president. When the members of parliament, some of them get for compete again for make them be members of parliament. Or when I say no one again for be members of parliament. So in the process, there were all the members of parliament, APC members of parliament, from Cheriko Code and now take down all the MPs there, where they under them. To Kande Yumkela and all the one the way they under them. To Emerson Lamina and all the C4C people the way they and the other SLPP people the way in the parliament. They were elected under the Public Elections Act of 2012. There was an election law under which they competed for parliamentary positions and for presidential positions. Then 5 years later, then get for one for contest again for presidency and for parliament, then say they need a new law for making organized election. The question is, what was wrong with the previous law, and why did these politicians from all them parties they decide say they need a new law for organized election? So these two legs of the question, one are left, one are right. Right foot and left foot. The first place, what did we find out say bad? Now the law will be used for organized election 2012 and 20. What did Maada Bio find out say been bad in the law in 2012? We've been contest under. You not complain about that law they say made and change in 2018 contest under that same law, and the rules them under that same law then he become president. Then now after we don't be president, he want for contest for make it remain as president, for make continue for do another 5 years as president. He said first and foremost before you do that, then for change the law first. When the members of parliament Cherry Coco, for example, was a vice presidential candidate of the APC. He contested election in 2007, 2012, then changed the law. He contested 2018, he contested both presidential, he did part of the presidential ticket, then he did part of the parliamentary tickets of the APC for go parliament. Why make themselves think say they need a new law if they want for contest again for making them go parliament or any other position we want for contest for? Why then they agree say the law under which they may contest and need for changer? Not in by the way, I know you say things are wrong for changing laws, laws are meant to be upgraded, to be developed in response to society. But the question is, we get to find out for why them politicians here think say that we need a new law, new election law for the next election. Kande Yonkela was presidential candidate for the NGC and also parliamentary candidate. He contests for parliament and contests for president under the old law. Why NGC thinks they need a new law? They will support a new law for the parliament for the next election. Likewise, the same question for SLPP, the same question for C4C. Now, that question here we need for ask the wire force, make the answer we. One, if you be saying that Maada Bill only want this lawyer, why will not be no say Maada Bill going to develop a public elections law before we Africanist press publish the fact say MPs and the president and they discuss a secret law with that law if they encounter with her, you get for change the entire way how they organize election. And which we've been saying are the changes. We say number one, they want to introduce the national identification number, then they bring in NCRA into the elections, and all of them rules are here. They want for even introduce proportional representation. Now we publish her. After we publish her, now from that day they will publish this, we expose this. Now from that day now, APC members of parliament, APC politicians, some of them, especially those in parliament, begin campaign against Africanist presidents, say we're not credible. Then begin telling supporters them, within our social media and other places, say, they begin to say in the question with credibility. Our only crime that we committed against these politicians is to highlight and bring to light and make the public aware that your members of parliament in the APC, in the C4C, in the SLPP, or in the NGC, together with SLPP parliamentarians, we are discussing or about to make into law a new election law. And that election law, if them pass on, we talk say it will exclude, it will suppress voters across areas of the country whose side Maada Bill expects say opposition voters and likely they. And we say them place there, na Freetown, Putloko, Lonsar, Cambia, Bamoy Luma, Makeni, Maburka, Matutuka, Makali, Mashingbin. Tego up then sama Bendugu Hill, the man Sombiri. Una see, that's so we talk, that's so we write back. Where we do this, members of parliament come out, they say then they against NIN, then they against proportional representation. And me for one telling us, say proportional representation, regardless of whichever system you use, regardless of the percentage threshold you use, proportional representation is never for a presidential candidate. No. Proportional representation is only at the level of the assembly, at the level of the representative assembly, at the level of parliament. You don't even need for be a political scientist who study political science at any university. If you do no more civic education at the elementary level of schools to high schools, you already know, say, types of elections. For them, one then as alone with it and call themselves art students, we study history and government. Una know say, then say we get three arms of government: the executive branch, the judiciary, the legislative arm of government. We get types of elections. We get general election, we get by-election, we get parliamentary election, we get presidential election. You know, these are things that we learn from elementary school. Then they begin to tell you about types of legislation, delegated legislation, and all of these things. So you don't need for be highly university educated person for making no say your politicians have not actually told you the truth. When it comes to question of proportional representation, which is a form of electing representatives, an electoral system by itself, way different from a single member constituency election. What we are talking about is election of representatives to the National Assembly, election of representatives to what you call Congress in America, what you call the, Parliament in Sierra Leone, National Assemblies, the legislative arm of government. That we got to be clear. So, in the Public Elections Act of 2022 that was presented to Parliament, drafted, we look at the pages of that bill. It was printed in April 2022. So make we give the MPs the benefit of the doubt. More pretend say we not sabi nothing. We not sabi to talk about. Because when they say, "How not sabi for Parliament," they talk about us as if they are more learned than us. Like say that they no more sabi, or that they no more learn book, or then sabi because they in a Parliament they sabi all thing. You don't understand? Some of them cannot even be students, cannot qualify to be students in certain classrooms that we teach, in the real sense of the word. But for the sake of conversation, we they give them the benefit of that. Okay, we not sabi nothing, but also that this law, we don't find out. Say, since April, let me not aware of this. Now, then claims they not be know. They only knew about this during the first week of June, when Parliament put them in front of them. But they went through pre-legislative discussion. They've not been talking. We be not know say this thing that they will not highlight them because we want for students to do with them. Just like we know particular things now that we're waiting to see. Now make it happen, then we talk, say, see, we've been telling her. So when we raised this issue about Parliament was trying to secretly pass a law that would change the electoral laws in the country and make it difficult for people to participate in an election, parliamentarians came out and denied that this is the case. Make I take a quick break. Are they in between meetings? I'll come back and continue this conversation. Please share the link. Yes, as I've been, so I decided to take the break in between now because my intention is to make this broadcast very brief. As I tell you now, they're on the road. So I don't raise these questions now. I don't lay the premise for Teluna. We remind we say we come out to we day. We highlight the fact say the introduction of a new law for elections in itself, nothing where the parliamentarian and begin for discourse without knowledge. Now the question is, if Maada only be want a proportional representation, now the only individual will be want a new law, a new election law. The SLPP was the only political party that wanted a new law, the government. Now they nobody want a new election law. And now they want a proportional representation. And now they be one for make sure say NIN and NCRA are brought into the picture. Now they be one for make ECSL frustrate voters and suppress voters. Why did members of parliament they not tell we this until when the African Express discover this and bring them to public attention? We know the drama we go through. Now, I don't want to repeat and talk about since the discussion and voting I don't learn, say, even at the point when we expose this, the members of parliament lie to we about what they were doing with the law, to the extent that they say they don't kill the PR and all of that. But before I go into discussing parliament, I be need for lay this premise here. For make we talk, say, in the last 4 years, even if we take this public elections bill, we put them aside. We take the public elections law, we put them aside. Your members of parliament don't pass dozens of other laws there and approve agreements. We don't cost we a lot that many of you do not even know about. And at the level of legislation, make we begin. The day where they talk, say, members of parliament don't even fight in a parliament and don't fight, they don't throw away the mace. That the very day again, parliament, the following day, parliament commit into the house for a debate, the Political Parties Act. And this Political Parties Act of 2022, now a law again where they change the existing law, where set up the PPRC, the Political Parties Act of 2002. Now they say they change and they introduce a new political parties law. Up to now, members of parliament, they not tell you the provisions within that law. Part of the changes, not to just forgive the commission more regulatory powers, but now changes again where they allow for the appointment of any individual as head of the commission. I need for ask them, why will they decide to change the political parties law in ways that will affect not just how political parties are going to function, but will affect citizens' and right to political association? They never told you about it because we not ever dissect and talk about that. So which means if we had not exposed the idea that a draconian election law was already in parliament for don't pass that law and not for no. And before I lost my train of thought, I just want to emphasize say, proportional representation when they talk saying that Maada be one force and a parliamentarian their head, it is really for the benefit of the parliamentarians. Now, how will it benefit APC parliamentarians for now? Few months from now, parliament, the life of this current parliament will be done. And parliament will not close. Members of parliament will be fighting for symbols in their own parties for make them represent them if not a single member constituency. Take the APC, for example. Their new constitution provides that nobody no go be appointed again to any position, and that includes appointment for contest an election. So you no go be by selection, according to them, because that's what you guys fought against. Then talk say the old APC constitution prevent or prioritize selection, although there was forms of election, but it also had provisions that deal with question of selection. So then say, as far as they are concerned, the idea of selection is not democratic, that every position within the party has to be voted for. It has to be based on open competition, including the question of deciding who should contest on behalf of the party for parliament and other positions. So which means your current members of parliament, if they want to return to parliament, according to the new APC constitution, they therefore compete for symbol. Now, in your own party constitution, from how I understand it. So the question then becomes, perhaps, who will assign a symbol to or vote for a candidate for any of these members of parliament? Very few of them, if they go into an open ballot now, forget symbol. Or if they cannot decide for themselves, now somebody else go decide, the party members and then therefore decide who that go represent them in the parliament. Many of these members of parliament, I'm sure, many of you who are APC supporters will not want to see some of them in parliament anymore. We don't want to see them in parliament anymore because their representation in the last 4 years has not been effective. They never provide effective and quality representation in the last 4.5 years, leading up to 5 years. They have provided excuse for their lack of effective representation in parliament on the basis that they deal with Maada being a monster, where they threaten them, they beat them, they jail them, they can't go police in parliament, which is a facade. It's impossible. Then we only get this situation when it comes to a question that is at the benefit of the state. When parliamentarians really want to assist the regime, they pretend they are powerless. When the questions will become open democratic questions will affect the public. We don't talk about this in the past, but I therefore come to the. But I just want to return to this question of proportional representation and why perhaps members of parliament in the APC will want proportional representation. If, as we have it now, they will have to compete for symbols for going to parliament, many of them will not win because of how disappointing their representation has been. That's one. Secondly, some of them, even if they compete in an election and a constituency directly, many of the people in that constituency will not vote them in because of they will prefer other candidates over them people, and even if they are going to vote for the party, they will prefer other candidates on the ballot than some of these members of parliament. They know it. So observe what has happened to the APC since April. First and foremost, the APC not get any executive, not get any structures from the zonal to the ward to the national, right up to now. What they've had since April is a divisive, illegal committee that is appointed by a judge who, by law, according to the lawyers themselves, is not supposed to practice law in Sierra Leone. So the question of how he become a judge first is a different thing. But the question here is that the APC not get a functional executive. Because they not get a functional executive, the people who will capture the party right now will hold on. Now two groups. One group is made up of Alpha Peter Conte, any young people they will represent, and the opposition leader in parliament, Chairman Ramadan Majuba, and the members of parliament were appointed at the committee. These are the two halves, Abdul Kagbo and the rest of the other MPs, and the others will constitute the committee. Now, even in the constitution of an election committee, where they say the members of parliament get first, when I look at the judgment where Fisher been do. Now, they petitioned the very lawyer, Alpha Jallo, we petition for say he need an interpretation of the orders. This is a lawyer, Cherikuku lawyer, and say they want me to interpret for them the order with Fisher, the illegal Judge Fisher. Now, when they went for interpretation, instead of an interpretation of the order, what did the judge do? The judge give new orders. He canceled some of the orders, he give new orders. So they did not go to court to have new orders for the judge for issue new orders. But now the judge don't realize the first orders were issued because of the criticism and the analysis of the orders that we've been doing. It don't appear now say he gave what he calls simple majority to the parliamentary leader of the party. Basically, the party is arrested by its members of parliament, by the leadership of the party in parliament. They disable the party. Now election they come. If the election remain as it is right now, it means that the members of parliament will be in charge. In fact, they're in charge now. If APC remain as it is, these members of parliament, now them definitely get for end up again for decide whether we're going to parliament in proportional representation, because it's at the level of the party secretariat. Now, imagine if they have a majority also in constituting an election committee, an interim election committee, whatever you might call it. I don't know how the abbreviation for them. But they will superintend the conduct of lower level elections right up to, and some of their colleagues and friends, like the Adema colleagues and other people, will attach to Cherikoko and other people, and they contest again for executive positions in the party. So, which means in a proportional representation, if these members of parliament, we don't fight and don't arrest the party and don't disable the party from functioning, they will be in charge of an executive. They are likely to be in the fight for being in charge of an executive at the party level that will decide the party list, the list of members who will go to parliament. And now, in the first judgment, Fisher say he don't give the parliamentary leader of the party because he thinks the parliamentarian that represent the party, and then the party, then they for the party. Now, you give them majority in the interim transition governance committee. The second thing again, in the composition of our election committee in the past, you give them more majority. Then now, we don't realize the tension and the criticism say parliament don't come under serious fire and serious scrutiny for pretend now say there is democratization. He issue new orders, not to interpret the order. When I go read the orders there, we go post on the African Express Facebook page and WhatsApp groups. Make una read them. Because the problem now, yeah, Sierra Leoneans, sometimes they say, we then put something in paper, in book, the writer will not the reader. So 50 page Not everybody get the time for read the 50-page ruling. But the key thing when I take now in the election committee, the parliament number gets 7 members. 7, 7, and then divide 21. Then the other 4 they say will come out from the youth wing, the diaspora wing. If you check all the wing there, most of them will say then they for the parliamentary leader because they assume the parliamentarians have been fighting for the party. But this is the logic. If you have an interim election committee, then therefore work with the rules, election rules, there's every tendency they will have their own people in the executive. It's good for one I know this. So when you go to vote, you know what you're voting for. And for me, I do not care how you try to arrange your party. I'm talking about why proportional representation is important to these members of parliament and how it relates to their party politics too. At the level, if you get Ade Macaulay as an example, I use as an example, who is plainly attached to your parliamentary leader of the party, working at the law firm of Alpha Jallo, when Alpha Jallo goes seek petition to Fisher and Fisher rule, add more orders instead of interpret the orders, they add more new orders. So what you will have, if you have a secretary in that case, that the extension of the influence with this parliamentarian don't already exercise over the party, they are trying basically to consolidate their grip on the party. So if you go into lower level elections and end up with an executive that is there, that is made up of people, when are the young people, then SSF, then get an executive, including the secretariat, then it means that these members of parliament are guaranteed their return to parliament in a proportional representation. They're not going to go to another constituency. So if they don't capture the party, now even if they lost the presidential election, they don't care. They know say they will go to parliament. They will prepare. These are all young people. They will prepare themselves for the election of 2028. This is why they're not busy. For look at the registration where they happen at the problem. The deletion of names, over 250,000 names of voters have been deleted from the register. This is not an allegation. And what in ECSL talk, we not even debate whether the number where they announced at the correct register, that their own statistics force. So you risk having a situation, your members of parliament and this parliamentary leader have already participated in the disabling of your party. Then they get the majority hold in the transition committee. Then now they will also have majority representation in the pending election committee. They will be in charge of organizing lower level elections, right up to them will constitute. Their goal will be to make sure that people who end up in the national executive and other constituent executive positions in the party will be their own allies in the party, the young people in the party, and then go want for organize elections and seize the party. Their objective in the final analysis, if they have a secretariat that is run by Secretary General that is their own, then that Secretary General with the chairman of the party or whosoever is there, and then put the list of people who will go to parliament in the proportional representation. This has nothing to do with Maada bill, as opposed to a situation. So which means they know care yourself now who will contest. They know say already, in fact, when you look the election, how registration been difficult when the members of parliament and pass the law for make NIN and all of this. Whosoever becomes a candidate is likely to lose to Maada bill. And these people will not have been able, Alfred Peter Conte and Cherry Koko, they're not able for holding a party together if they were not aided and supported by the institutions of the state. Fisher will not have been a judge who will dismantle a whole political party, pass divisive rules and orders against the party. Then the party go, the neighbor function and kind of say, one may interpret the order. Then he add new fresh orders. He issued fresh orders instead of interpreting the previous orders. Nobody seemed to talk about it. So in the question here, if you begin to look at this as a problem of this faction versus that other faction, a problem again on a party. So the fact of the matter is, Abbas Bundu in a young conversation in parliament, when I remember, he talks say proportional representation according to that is embedded in the laws of Sierra Leone. So it should not be debated in parliament. Why parliament decide for bring that kind of argument in front of parliament a day before they start the verification? Now, ECSL don't come out and announce say they get 3,500,000 and something thousand voters. They don't discover say about 215, nearly 260,000 voters, and they were now underage. Some of them are duplicated registration. The question is, what kind of biometric system that will allow somebody to register 2 times where they will pick you up? Even ECS said in the press conference, we talk say the system is so watertight that you go pick under go pick double registration. Not only that, they even confirm say what make first time voters are not able to register now because the machine they not program for accommodate them. Now this same ECS and I tell you over 200,000 people don't register when are underage. Your members of parliament yin they set more. Instead of talk about that in parliament, what they do now for go say they don't fight in parliament and program for make international media talk about the fight in parliament. So now even when exhibition of the provisional register, first and foremost, we don't flag say, we are not for even exhibit this register first. We need political parties need for react and respond to these numbers announced by ECSL. During registration, when I say when I monitor every side. In fact, before even ECSL they announced some of that, we don't begin to talk about numbers then. The numbers that you guys announced were less than 3 million. When we want for announced less than 2 million voters say that they register. Now, people don't tower for register, come on for register, go for register. On the rain, with umbrella, with bench them. After we then register, what did Parliament do? We raised issues about the NIN. We raised issues about the NCRA. Did Parliament take act on it? No. We raised issue about the fact say ECSL claims say they don't spend $10 million for procurement. There's no evidence that such procurement was done, or even the procurement was awarded according to the laws. Evidence right there, receipts, everything published. Your members of parliament never talked about it. Now, a few weeks before the declaration of the result or the announcement of the provisional register, provisional statistics, members of parliament and SSF, including the NGC, Skanda Yumkela, saying they don't invite ECSL to go talk. They invite civil society all, the parliament for can hold discussion around ECSL and the electoral registration. What in the civil society and say, then write a statement for say, then they advocate for proportional representation. It's an open democracy. So this is why we had told you from the beginning, the idea of proportional representation is not for Maada BO. It is the part of the reward for MPs for allowing Maada BO for bring the law get 2 aspects or 3 aspects. One is a law that is designed to frustrate people from participating in elections, especially so in areas of the country where voters are likely to vote against the president. We've been talking that day. So for make members of parliament pass the law and agree for making them pass the law, members of parliament also need to get their own side inside the law. And that side that they have in the law is the fact that they want to have a proportionally represented parliament. What does that mean? NGC, for example, if they were to contest in Gambia, say, can they go contest in Gambia? Or Honorable Mario contest in Gambia, the constituency side contest, then get strong APC candidate or strong other candidate, then likely get for beta. So in a proportional representation where the threshold is 11%, so which means even if you get an APC candidate going to parliament, then the second person, as long as they get 11% or not, or there about the party we can second, as long as the threshold and votes pass second in the district block system, they are also guaranteed some share of that representation that comes from the district in parliament. Yes, then we talk say that means we will get, it does not address the question of conflict in parliament. No, we've been getting a proportional represented parliament in 1996. What thing happened? As they start parliament, so the ruling party, SLPP, not be even allow UNPP for exercise the majority in the parliament. Then go to the point all, Tijan Kababigi, Kergo, UNPP members of parliament and London on a conference, Commonwealth conference, and not seek the authorization of the party leadership. We the party leaders, they want for discipline. The members of parliament, we don't act outside of the wishes and approval of the party leadership. What did they do then? Make an insurrection in parliament, say for the opposition members, they say they vote out their own, remove the party leader, the parliamentary leader. They organize a revolt in parliament. That was the proportional representation where they were the praise. So all the people who don't advocate for proportional representation, from Julius Spencer, where they defend proportional representation, you go say he don't defend proportional representation before now, but he's NGC. The NGC in parliament during the debate, they showed clearly, articulate the points that they want proportional representation, and they actually want it. because that the only way then things say they will guarantee them representation, then increase the membership in parliament. Smaller parties. So this is why the pretense that proportional representation is just for the ruling party is not. For the APC, we don't talk. It is one way that these members of parliament will avoid being removed from parliament. If they take over the party, which they are about to do, where they already do, then one just completer. Now they go for appoint themselves go to parliament. They will be in parliament. And the danger of a proportional represented parliament, when I see this parliament where they so, when a constituency-based parliament, when the members of parliament don't even care about una. In a proportional representation, you will not even know which parliamentarian represent this we go hold. Now your area. So you will just say honorable. The honorable is just attached, is just loyal to the party. Now the party answerable to, not to you, the voter. The voter, if they get problem, now the party then get for whole, not to the member of parliament. So basically, the idea of direct representation, direct democracy in itself as we have it in the form of representation here is undermined, straight up. Yes, anybody who want to argue for proportional representation has a right to do that. If you believe, say, proportional representation are the best thing for you, you can talk about that. But do not pretend that this is something that Maada just want to force on the people. No. The members of parliament, current members of parliament, want it. In fact, if you can't look at members of parliament, the SLP people will not want it if you check them deeply. Why they don't go want and they don't go want the situation where the president and whoever they will determine who that will go na parliament. They don't go want that. The ruling party MPs, if you check them comprehensively, you assess them, you open them heart, you check inside it, they will tell you, say, we don't want this proportional representation. Why? Because at the level of proportional representation, the Secretary General of the party and the party chairman and leader, Maada Bio, and his wife, and then go for determine who that will go and represent SLPP in a parliament. They will only put Maada Bio supporters in parliament. And many of the SLPP people are not in favor of Maada Bio. They were not. In fact, the NGC would not have become a party if Maada Bio was not competing against them. The NGC program was to prevent Maada Bio from becoming flag bearer of the SLPP. Because they failed to defeat him in that party contest, they broke away and decided to form a new party that they call the NGC. So the KKY movement, which turned to NGC, was organized principally in opposition to Maada Bio becoming the flag bearer of the SLPP, talk less of becoming president. Now, when they formed the party, the intention was to stop Maada Bio from becoming president. And the fact that they became unable to stop Maada Bio from becoming president, they also want an enlarged parliament, enlarged representation in parliament. So many of the people in the SLPP, including the NGC that left SLPP, we are not for Maada Bio. And many of them in parliament now will lose their positions of going back to parliament if it's going to be decided just on a party list. They will not make it to the list. So in the real sense of the word, where you check them, you find out, say, the proportional representation, whether now, whatever shape or form, district block, or whatever threshold system the overall calculate the overall national, take the whole country as a constituency, or you go, whatever form you use them, it has nothing to do with the presidential vote. It is for parliamentary representation. So, and in a proportional represented parliament, the president will even mind if the speaker of parliament is from another opposition party. In fact, it will look good for him. Especially then kind of wheeler-dealer parliamentarians, who we get so. People who are willing to do business, who have done business, who are corrupt. If you check corrupt parliamentarians, or you want for blame, you want for examine parliamentary corruption in Sierra Leone in the last 20 years, or you take the case of APC. In the days of the APC, there is no law or agreement that went through parliament where you go false say later had corruption in it that did not involve leading members of the APC, including Charikoko, who was a key parliamentarian, and later to the extent that he was deputy speaker of parliament. So how do you want to talk about corruption in the APC in the past? You avoid parliament, and you avoid members of parliament who worked in the past regime. So these are the realities. All of these people, now, the idea of a fight in parliament, They're not fed in a parliament because they try to do good for the people. No. Proportional representation is for them. Now they want to. They enjoy the pretending they fight over and now because we don't already bring them at the spotlight. Remember, I've been used the popular phrase, say, we don't bring parliament at the luma. Make we see how they go sell, how they go buy. Now they take now. All of this, the August 10 drama. Take from when we expose parliament, take now the crisis in the country. The crisis just increased in the country. And the crisis is not made possible because parliamentarians want to do something good. No, they have done worse things since, including their silence over the ongoing suppression of voters, the fact that voters have been deleted from the provisional register, the fact that we get a provisional register without accurate and correct details. This is obvious. You cannot have a biometric system and a provisional voters register is produced where people's faces are absent, people's names are absent, people's entire record is absent from the register, even though they have registration, evidence of having completed registration. And then they say 4 days only. In these 4 days, what they want to talk about is fighting parliament. That's they want to talk about. And they're not fighting the parliament because they talk about the approval of a budget. No. Parliament not ever fed say that they against the excessive expenditure of government. Parliament not be fed say it's unreasonable or unthinkable, like a sin for making them pay parliamentarians the more salaries, increase benefit when teachers, security sector workers are not getting paid. So they're not talking about all that here. Parliament not even talk about the fact that they get a wages and compensation commission bill that will have harmonized salaries for the civil service. They don't even care about fed for that one day, but they say that they fed and pretend saying they fed because Maada be one for force them for do proportional representation. No, that is false. Proportional representation will benefit APC and the current APC MPs more than it will benefit current SLPP MPs. That is true, they tell you so. Because if the APC MP take over the party, and then go for elect themselves for go to parliament, they write their own names there. That make you see all the una watch una know una party, una know the people there, una know that they are, una check una self no una go know. We are talking about this because if parliament be really mean well, parliament not for be not encouraged for approve a bank governor will introduce a law where they all agree the law will introduce the currency, the new currency, the currency denomination. When they introduce the bill in the parliament and lay the instrument in the parliament, parliamentarians not even debate until it be 21 days. It matured without a debate, without objections. Now, after we don't become law, we don't pass 21, now the time APC MPs and can't say they want for challenge. They say, no, but the 10 don't pass. They're not fed over that. Today, we country get 2 running currencies, the old Leon and the new Leon. The old Leon and the new Leon. Parliamentarians they be fed for prevent that from happening? No. In fact, they wanted it to happen because then see the bank, the central bank, and the currency was part of the effort of the government for muzzle the opposition. Key certain opposition politicians were not like. The same way that they've used the ACC against their opponent, the same way they decided to use the central bank against their opponents and the currency market. Now, where are we? We have a country that's running on 2 currencies. What role did Parliament play? That they approve the bank governor, that they approve all of the fiscal policies of the government, including the introduction of a new banking legislation, we introduce the currency, we don't plunge the economy into crisis. You want to excuse your parliamentarians? No. When a parliamentarian get the opportunity and the power, and if they want to halt this government in the whole time, parliaments all over the world can ground the government if they wish for do, even if they are in the minority. If opposition members of parliament, no matter their number, decide to stay out of parliament, say we'll not go participate in parliament anymore, because don't find out, say government, they just run government without regard for parliamentary voices. There will be no government. No international government or international institution will deal with that government. Ask yourself, why did the courts remove 10 members of parliament and your members of parliament, including your parliamentary leaders, still remained in parliament? We'll ask ourselves why, with all of the bad things and the census, regulations and laws and proclamation, Abbas Bundu Sese talks say when parliament, when the proportional, there are two ways to organize an election or 2 roads to parliament. Either you do a proportional representation or you do a single member constituency. No. The other one getting own conditions, and the conditions now exist. We will not talk about, not for labor and technicalities because as we run out of time. But what am I saying is the fact that when our members, this parliament, before Ernest Koroma left power, we will get a constitutional review. The constitutional review was meant to reduce or address the draconian tendencies within the constitution. A lot of money was spent. A lot of conversations, suggestions, and ideas were made. Justice Cowan finished with the constitutional review process and submit. Nothing came out of it. And these members of parliament, including Cheriko Kodemidina parliament, they never made any effort to bring to life a new constitution that would have addressed the draconian tendencies of the constitution. And we will get one of the most fearful constitutions in the world. Now, one small phrase now Ernest Koroma used there for Saksam Sumana. How you call themselves? Supreme Executive Authority. Or I don't forget the exact, but that is what it is. An extraordinary power written into the constitution for the president. That one phrase now use for dismantle and remove a vice president. If anybody take that Salon constitution, read the powers of the president, you go afraid. It's such a fearful document because the anti-democratic tendency of the constitution, you go see on every side. The only good thing that will not ever get president it, we're really a dangerous man. Because a man they don't get. All the one they don't get as bad as we criticize and so, will not get somebody in the country. We're legally minded. We take over government. If that happen, a danger for all man they don't win at the country with the kind of constitution we get. Now, we have lawyers in parliament. We know this, they know this. Your parliamentary leader is a lawyer, he knows this. He knows, say, the Constitution of Sierra Leone, the 1991 Constitution of Sierra Leone, and all these other amendments still not address the draconian tendencies. It's not a democratic constitution, it's a very repressive constitution, one that gives the president such enormous executive powers. No president will ever use it. Now, one small phrase inside Ernest Koroma use for take down in vice president and appoint another person. Now, we try, say, for bring a process for address the issues that are in the constitution. At the time of 1991, the constitution was democratized because they moved from a one-party dictatorship. So anything that will allow multi-party politics, open competition, more parties for exist, people may just focus on that one. They did not pay attention to the other ancillary provisions within the constitution, dealing with human rights, the powers of the presidency, and all of that. But one thing there inside is the fact that the powers of parliament are there. Section 86, subsection 2, we don't talk about repeatedly with other colleagues, other Sierra Leoneans who are determined to enhance democracy. I've been pointing to this. The fact that the constitution also allows 20% of members of parliament for invoke or convene an emergency meeting on any issue of importance. This is in addition to the other provisions of the constitution, we give the parliamentarians the power for probe into, investigate, and other, immunities and guarantees we parliament get. Parliamentarians are not to forget people there. Now, all over the world, parliaments are very important institutions, very powerful institutions, not only important, but very powerful institutions, protected by constitution and range of immunities. When a parliamentarian like one like you no more. So, what am I pointing to is the fact that we had an opportunity under the Ernest Koroma government for change and reduce the power of the presidency. Your current members of parliament, some of whom were in parliament, did not help that process. It was quashed. Now, after Maada became president, the idea of constitutional review, as it were, not ever occupied the national conversation the way it did under Justice Cowan. These members of parliament as opposition then get the opportunity, will not start a process that they be started, if we don't say, if push the government and complete it. Now, what is 2 days ago? Now, we say we don't pass a gender act. They want to look good. Give Maada praise, say, oh, he is for women. Because now they even talk, say now one way that they want for justify the proportional representation. But before I forget about that, and say, this is what I want to emphasize, that the fact that the politicians then in parliament who were part of a government that superintended the revision of the constitution or processes for revise the constitution and bring in a new constitutional review, then no try for actualize that constitutional review for reduce the powers of the presidency and democratize the landscape, democratize the laws, democratize the institutions. What did they do? They collaborated with the ruling party to bring in more anti-democratic laws. Basically, they strengthen the draconian tendencies of the constitution by creating more ancillary legislations, more dangerous auxiliary laws then, or secondary laws then, in addition to the already dangerous provisions within the constitution. That is the crime that your parliamentarians have committed at the legislative level, not at the economic level. This now at the level of legislation. And what are those laws? I know them. The Cyber Act, we criminalize free speech. We even talk, say, the government can run after somebody, a Sierra Leonean, any national of Sierra Leone, outside of the borders of Sierra Leone, who is critical of government. When I see within the EU, talk then they are say they're not being funded for made a stifle free speech. So they pretended they had gotten rid of the seditious libel provisions in the Public Order Act, we criminalize free speech. Now they brought in new, more than draconian legislations where they turn even a cell phone into a crime scene. You telephone, now a crime scene, an instrument of crime for these politicians now, with the cyber legislation, with them pass. They add that, then strengthen that one day. Not only that, they also did an amendment to the 2008 Anti-Corruption Act for give the anti-corruption more powers to go after opposition people. Then do it. This is even with the objection that the Anti-Corruption Commissioner was not actually of the age of practice we require for making become an Anti-Corruption Commissioner. What did they do? Then do a court decision, a court interpretation of that particular provision where cut the ACC Commissioner loose, say, in fact, then they revise what it means to be post-bar, or at what point you begin for count, what at the point of pupillage or when you just done a city bar exam. They did all of that, the court decision, court interpretation. Basically, in future, where an inquiry was going to be made, raising the question whether Francis Ben Kalfala was qualified to be appointed anti-corruption commissioner, because there were questions whether he was 10 years post-bar, and people let me believe say he was not 10 years post-bar. The argument may be there. And a future inquiry was going to be held to look into that. And if he was found to be not qualified and accept the position, which means all of the salary will be non-take, was subject to be repaid in a future inquiry. So, but what has the court done? The court then don't interpret what it means to be 10 years post-bar, so which means there was not going to be any question about that. And would have them lead that kind of, your parliamentarians are there. They know about these things. But not only that, let's forget about even the cyber legislation. Another legislation, with a recent one there, this parliament don't pass into law, putting and called the National Security and Central Intelligence Act of 2022, which reviewed the National Security Act of 2002. Now, all of the ONS and also institutions, they are going to be part of a national intelligence agency in a way. But that's not the point. The point is the law allow for sting operations. It allow a government for raid, for example, a newspaper office. If you go, you set up an investigative, say African Express go open office in Freetown now, after 2023, or anytime we open office in Freetown. One day, some politician and police and go grab them more than go order, say we don't can seize all on a computer, then arrest on all, say we believe, say, we not do something now, when thing with against national security. Without a warrant, they can do that if they're in the name of protecting national security. And the order for such a situation can also come from the cabinet. So the law even get in the provisions what they call a war cabinet. So the executive branch of government get the power now for dictate arrest. And anyhow they think for read that, they will have members of parliament tell Luna about that. The privacy rights of citizens, every citizen get right to privacy. Now they can even intercept your communication, which means government get right now for wiretap. Say they know say Chernobyl a critical journalist. He write about corruption, so make we bug in phone, so we know who that they talk to all the time. The law don't. They do it right now. They depend do it right now. Right now, as we have it, the Sierra Leonean state, they carry out such surveillance. We get for disclose this. How do they do it? How many people are not surveillance? We can tell them now. I don't say they listen. And this also not happen because the parliament give the approval for these things. The cyber law, the national security central intelligence law, the currency law, we plunge the economy into crisis. These are all the makings of parliament. Okay, parliament don't also change the election law. And one, apart from the NI we talk about, the law give the president and the electoral commission the power for determining the outcome of election. The law also give the president the power for sack the electoral commissioner on grounds of misconduct. You don't understand? So these are all in the law. Then they commodity, they don't pass a political parties act. This political parties act now for make sure say people the way want form political party go find and difficult now for form party. And the current party the way in the back, they don't provide provision, say then forgive them money now, they will get subvention. So political party like APC. So you keep force, make it difficult for register a new political party, and then you say they fund the existing parties. Then at the same time, you are turning political parties into the equivalent of business entities. So and then you give the political parties commission more regulatory powers for even take away and intervene into internal, like directly intervene without even an invitation into political party activities. The power of deregistration is right there too, for them to get right for the registered political parties based on their own. All of these provisions are there. The law, then first one day, the following day, the next day, then get at the agenda now, the Political Parties Act. So if you want to change the law, you change law for make sure that people do not get freedom of speech, freedom of information, for circulate information. They not get privacy rights. You read them anytime, seize them property, say you suspect them. They pass law for change currency, we don't cause currency crisis. You pass law for change how they vote and how they will vote for you. You change the law on political parties. You change the law on elections. You add all these laws the way they affect human rights and democracy in the country. What are you doing? These parliamentarians are not building a draconian state for Maada. They build them for themselves. Because they imagine, say, these are all lawyers, by the way, and a lawyer, they all do so. We check. Your parliamentary leader is a lawyer. And now they're in charge of your party now. Because when Fisher dismantled the party, who did he make the leader of the party? Now the parliamentary leader, he has the majority in the IGTC. Any kind of way you look at him. Now, even with the current new orders, because of the interpretation, the new orders with Fisher give the power for elect 7 new members or appoint 7 new members into an election committee, and they cannot be not from members of parliament, because already the members of parliament, they are the transition committee. They don't even appoint them again. You can appoint any other person within your own internal people and for them at the committee way for organized election. So they are slowly capturing a party that then draconian laws are when they pass through. Now laws then for the next government. It's not laws for this government too. Because if Maada is a dictator, he does not need extraordinary powers. He needs only the powers in the constitution we get it right now. The same powers where Alex Kurumabi they use, he get them inside the constitution. This other law the way they don't add for way they strengthen, so that for strengthening the democratic spirit, because the parliamentarian the way they did in the opposition, they feel saying that they get for inherit the next government. That the laws and that the way they get for use against we in the future. Those of us who will be standing here, who will be sitting here, who will be opposed to corruption, who will be opposed to human rights violations, who will be opposed to a bad government that is in the making. And these are all lawyers. Ade Macaulay is a lawyer. Cheriko Kona a lawyer. Una lawyers them, una lawyer friends them. All of them who are part of this process of imagining a dictatorial state. We don't support the enactment of legislation. We don't witness and they see these things and remain silent. Many of them are lawyers, practitioners. They have used the ACC in the past for fight the young party people then, used it against political opponents. Now at the level of parliament, with a dummy president, they are also building and strengthening the anti-democratic ethos of politics, because they imagine themselves as a successive government after Maada in 2028. This is why they have disabled the APC. This is why the opposition is dysfunctional. Because Maada bio na just a mirage when they use. So this is why I will talk say you cannot talk about dictatorship. You cannot talk about human rights violations. You cannot talk about economic crisis in Sierra Leone in the last 4 to 5 years now without parliament. And by the way, I not talk about the corruption of parliament. I therefore talk about that, especially how many agreements. And not only agreement with the money where they don't cost to hold on loss. And think some of our party supporters and talk say we are not corrupt, they need evidence of our corruption. We ready for sure that evidence. The how many agreements we don't pass. We know. You cannot talk about the airport agreement without the approval of parliament. You cannot talk about the sale or lease of the terminals that's alone for the last 25 years. We Maada Bio take engage a Turkish company for 25 years, lease with port terminals and for 25 years without the role of parliament, the agreements in parliament.
We can just a minute. We can arrange another time.
So yes, we not go. I don't say we don't drag the conversation now. We don't go 1 hour 90 minutes. I not be intent for make this broadcast too long. So I go summarize the key points. Now the fact that um, when parliamentarians are testing the fight over proportional representation, you should be amused. You should be amused. But what do we want people to focus on right now? Now the question of the voter verification of the voter registration is very important. The only way we don't tell una we might be one forget the second term, and this goes back to the first question I asked: why did members of parliament and the president require a new elections law? Because they want to make sure they retain their position. One way we might be one for retain in position as president, not through a rigged election, and rigging the election ahead of the day of voting through the suppression of voters in areas of the country where he believes opposition supporters reside. We don't talk about this only for repeater. We don't already see them. Now we now with determination for call on people them and people and determination for come out under rain, under terrible, difficult conditions, tawa, day in, day out for register. Now then they say they don't register una. People and don't turn for go verify the registration. Their names are not in the register or their pictures are not in the register. And anybody where you picture not in a register, you're not going to forget an ID card because they will not print a voter ID card without a face. And the question is how a biometric system go register somebody, give you evidence of registration, you come now, you name no more day, you picture no day. Then intend for delete you from the record. Because if you see Yebu Sise or Mohamed Kamara, Michael Kagbo, there are many Michael Kagbos, many Mohamed Kamara, many Almami Sise in Freetown alone, even in Shell or in Dwazak. You will see one Mohamed Kamara, you will see other 10 Mohamed Kamara. Then all the Mohamed Kamara is evidence. What you go distinguish on the fingerprint and the face. You can only consider a biometric registration complete when the biometric registration get the entire biometric data. That includes the facial recognition should be matched against the thumbprint of the person, the fingerprint details of the individual. Now you're going to go verify and say the open book for you. Can't look, hey, let me name this, but my picture not come. You don't even know say that Mohamed Kamara or Yebu Sise or Mabinti Kagbo where you see. Now you Mabinti Kagbo. Something that you name by name. Sometimes pass you get for look now. If you know Ibu read again, you don't know whether your papa is named it or your mama is named it. How you go for verify saying that you? What happen to your face? What it make them take your picture now? Your picture not appear. How we get the guarantee that even the one day when the pictures appear and then actual record did it. And this not to 1 or 2, not to 3 or 4, They are in hundreds of thousands. So what we have with all that difficult registration, all that amount of money, they don't produce a provisional register. That is not complete. And what has your parliamentarians said? What did they don't do? In fact, they tell una make una not pay attention to what they say. They discourage una for circulate information about this. Not to una then they help themselves. They do not want you to vote because they believe if you vote, like for vote out Maada bill, voting out Maada bill, like collapse of their own agenda. They want if Maada bill they come out, that they for step in. They don't build the law, then the bad law they don't make now. So that if they then come after Maada bill, and then law they didn't get for use. Maada bill don't need any law again for do what not happen at the country. No. If he don't do what he do so without the laws there with the members of parliament here pass, what in the way no go do with the members of parliament with the list law when don't pass? Suppose tomorrow if talk say that agreement where I get to say why come on, I don't give, I don't help una for season a party. So now why come on power? When I help me take a rogue election. Why be second time why I don't miss I will give power to una. The corruption, the thief, I don't thief, I don't go hold me. When I say we can continue the thief. So they're not going to only continue for thief, they don't make law there. To make sure say tomorrow anybody going to talk about them thief, expose them. The Cyber Act, the Central Intelligence, the National Security and Central Intelligence Bill, when not turned into law, the Political Parties Act, that's what they go for prevent opposition. Now, only you where the one might be opposition party, now you go for be opposition party. Only you where the one might be journalist, now you go for be journalist. You where the one for maybe civil society activist, now you go for be civil society activist. Then get all the law there and a lawyer there. And we already know the crookedness of lawyers in Sierra Leone for interpret law bad way. They say the law they say na this, they say no na this. Now imagine crooked lawyers at the head of a state, at the head of government with all them bad law they are, the constitution and then small law they are combined when don't pass. When I go na the website of the Sierra Leone Parliament and look at the acts and agreements that they list on it, not all of them put there, but I look the one the way they put there. The Sierra Leone Parliament has a website. According to their commitment, they're supposed to document everything they do and put it on the website for public access. Not everything is there, but what is there, go and check it. When I check all of the bilateral agreements and the loans when they don't approve, and then when I look at the legislation, today when I look at the laws that were don't pass. Yes, we don't get exposed in the past gender law now. Now the same people that we talk say that they write the gender law into the public elections bill. They begin put and say it will allow 30% for women. If you have been no sooner get 30% gender law, why would I want for put inside the public election? Because that way them want for full way for make with them pass the Public Elections Act. Say good for women, good for diaspora voting. Now, diaspora things to seem voting or whatever they may say, then address inside the law. You know, been there. Now fool them, they fool now. So we don't count to 5 years now into few months now we left for them parliamentarian there. What they left with we now a legacy, a legislative legacy that has strengthened the anti-democratic ethos, the anti-democratic spirit and aspiration of the Constitution. They have created the legal infrastructure for the dictatorial state that they intend to inherit in the future. So what will they look at? Any government we go for Canada in the future, whether na APC or any other government, the government where they don't give the ammunition for suppress. We all, anybody who not go for the, even if the part of government not like you, they go for use against you. So when I know say then Lord that will not pass, what they talk so, not to now. After 2023, many of you who will be opposed to human rights violations, to corruption, to bad government will have no place in Sierra Leone. And that's the members of parliament. And one of the legacy where Cherikuko them, Kande Yomkela them, Abbas Bundu them, Martin Numa, Emerson Lamina, the parliament of Sierra Leone under the regime of Maada Bio in his first term. This is part of the legacy that they have left for us. They have left us with laws, new laws, will not only help we for open up with democracy, but laws that have undermined the little democratic space that we have. They have armed the next president, the next set of politicians who will be in power with the necessary legislations we they need for run a quasi one-party state, a semi one-party state. They have built the kind of Kagame kind of situation, Museveni kind of situation in Sierra Leone. The legal architecture for that kind of state is what they have left. Many of these lawyers who have done this are in government and outside of government, in the opposition, and even some of them in the ruling party. For them, party na nothing. Party business, it like money. I think it's Mr. Cromer. Yesterday we talked about this. We got a long discussion, nearly 2 hours overnight, across a number of issues, in which we agree that for these politicians, we've come to understand that political parties are nothing to them. Political parties are just like money. If they can America outside a dollar, then use dollar. If they go to Sanowe and Leon, then use Leon. That's what political parties are to them. The day when they realize, say, no to APC, na SLPP na the thing, and they use SLPP. The day when they realize, say, na APC, then use another. Same way they use Leon here, they use dollar yonder. So you, we want to kill yourself for them put a party there. Now this is the thing. If Maada bio, they not left give you nothing. We don't know say one thing where they not left give you, that dangerous laws them. I've been worried about Public Order Act of 1965. Now I've been worried about. Now, when I get past 10 legislations, what I worry about. Each sentence in any of these laws is as dangerous as the public, or more dangerous than the Public Order Act. And they not do this for Maada. If Maada Bio they do this, then don't give Maada Bio the ammunition we need for destroy opposition at the country after 2023 if he gets second term. But they already know, say, Maada Bio, his time is done. In a free and fair competition, there's no way, Maada Bio in first, there's no way he's going to win a free and fair election. So the next people away in line are the opposition. Sadly, the majority opposition are APC. So the laws that we don't create, so they don't use Maada Bio for help create a law. When I then get for use the law, then they're against we all. So we have moved from a small open democracy to a wider, expansive dictatorial state. This is what Parliament has left with us. One legacy that they've left with us, this Parliament. We move from wanting to change and democratize the Constitution to 5 years of progressive development of laws and legislations, secondary statutes and legislations, constitutional instruments. We don't strengthen the anti-democratic spirit of the Constitution. And then empower institutions again with more regulations and rules then for muzzle ordinary citizens, including what ECSL they do, including what PPRC get for do, including what anti-corruption get for do, including the police, the court. Now look, Fisher, they say interpret what he been right because this your judgment here, it don't cause problem. What he do, he add the problem, he multiply the problem. When I say now a parliamentarian they do this. It's not done by me. It's not done by then and now. It's not done by Prince Kuruma or any other person. It's done by your members of parliament, Cherry Kuku and the rest of them. So, before I close, I want to remind you the problems that we've identified. I'd already mentioned this in many posts. On my Facebook page, which include the fact that ECSL announced 4 days for voter verification. Many of the people who are turning up to register have not found their names in the register. Those who found their names or who found names that look like their names have no faces. Their pictures, photographs are missing. And there are also indications where centers that register thousands of people only have hundreds of people exhibited in the register. And worse, all of these, 80% to 90% of these registration centers have no party representatives as monitors. I have participated in elections in 2012. We went as far as Belgium to verify the electoral register. I pull my own slip. I tell them, say, yeah, I want to check my own. I wait, man, Zetis in Belgium. And what I talk to, people and they call the APC people and the other people who have been there. Pandanoa, as Internal Affairs Minister, was present. Claude, commander of the APC, was present. PPRC's commissioner, registrar at the time was Abraham John. He's part of the government now. He was present. I insist. So we don't look all the register and say for sign say the register clean. I say no. When I go for bring down a filter, I refuse to sign. And because of the other people in back joined, they said, no, you need to sign. We flew back to Freetown. Zeti sent a delegation to Freetown. They went to Wellington, they exhibited, registered, do the everything we see back, that how our political parties agree. So if anything else, we agreed on one thing, that the election register of 2012 was a decent one. The ID card, na check una voter, I get me own ya. Unfortunately, the defa of some side there. I don't show right now, Monasia. That was the first biometric voter ID card, with the first biometric voter ID card. An ID card that was the result of biometric registration. By now, we're not worried about biometric registration. We just add people and names there as in they go along. How we degenerate to this point? It's Parliament, the politicians. We work one step forward, they don't take we 25 steps backwards. So now this I want for say, when I go out and check on our registration, check your register. Let us know how many people who have encountered this difficulty. We never collect this data. More people have submitted reports of their data. Some of the video, they don't post them out. Your parliamentarians and your politicians in the ruling party who want Maada to continue, they want to delete names from the register. Now they talk and say, no, 250,000 names. Now, you go check your registration, you find out, say, you picture missing. Now, you picture yourself now missing. The name which are in name. What should be the ideal situation? They will have the same camera and the same machine for take a picture and correct the record right there on the computer. We check on the book, then check on the computer, then correct and they want you go. Now then they say, might enter a name no more, they will organize another second registration. Do we need that? Political parties, if we don't make this demand, and if we don't help to correct this. These are the same political parties where they talk, say, then do PPLC meetings, political party liaison committee meetings. We used to attend political party liaison committee meetings. We insisted on what we wanted, and they never do them. So now, I'd encourage you now to go out, check your registration, report the differences.
Wait.
And then una. Yeah, so I don't already highlight Parliament. When I pay attention to the voting right, it's the only right we have. The only right we have, the only opportunity we have, the only power we get left now at the franchise. The opportunity for vote. Protect the vote. Protect your right for vote. Go to the verification centers and I encourage you people and call your relatives, your friends, your neighbors, encourage them to go verify the registration. Report difficulties to we or to other institutions where we take action. We get a number out. I will post them back on my Facebook page and circulate on WhatsApp. We'll make we do that. The same number that you've been reporting to. We don't even get reports and we don't post them out. Let's do that. Next week, I will continue this conversation on the Parliament and focus on Parliament and begin show law by law, legislation by how each of these legislations were not passed affect with human rights, how each of these agreements cost we money, and some of it also that you do not know about that has cost us money. So I want to stop now and tell you thank you for attending the discussion. Share the link to those who were not present so then we will learn from this. And let's continue the conversation. And we want to thank then and now for the opportunity. As always, courageous step taken by Brother Prince Kuroma. May God continue to bless you and your family and the rest of the team. Until next week, I have been your regular, I will not call a host because we're still the fair way for making this team participatory, but I've been your regular friend and brother. Thank you very much and see you next week.